Life. Yes, life. Just. So sickening thoughts, and my life is 2, 3, 4 times past done, and something else is keeping me alive at the moment. And in this place, I'll say the shame. But the mind of my circumstance, trying to comprehend it in its simplest essence, it is shame. It's shame to an absolute that I don't think there'd be many people that would ever reference it as shame. And through my spirituality, through the aloneness, I've been becoming aware of whom people are in terms of past lives, and how that relates, what it means, and everything else. And unfortunately, my dad's side of the family hold quite an unpleasant burden of a reincarnation. And there's 5 ways, to my understanding, probably more, but to the simplest essence, there's 5 ways people reincarnate. The soul is the main one, so the soul is the eyes. So if you want to know, if you suspect that you might be the reincarnation of somebody, try and find a picture of them in that past life and look at their eyes and see if they have eyes like yours. The other way is the emotional body. And the emotional body, emotions to a certain extent are life. So in other words, a perfect encapsulation of that one life gets reincarnated, and as much as the soul has that one life within its own catalogue of lives, the emotional body is a perfect encapsulation of that life, and the way that gets passed around, passed on, isn't necessarily quite so simple as, oh, I die now, I get reincarnated in 7 years' time sort of thing, which is, to my understanding, the normal time it takes to reincarnate. And unfortunately, my family have inherited a rather nasty emotional body. for us. And with the emotional body, I think it's been coming to me slowly, and I've been questioning it, and it's clicked in the past few days. Where the soul goes forward in time, so in other words, whoever was Jesus 2,000 years ago, however many times Jesus has reincarnated since, it's like just a step forward each time, and it's the same soul. Whereas emotional bodies go backwards in time. Essentially, what we're heading to is a point in time when life is at its peak. I don't know how to look at it. It's like a big bang of life, and it's happening in the future. And in that moment, all the past is almost being pulled forward to that point in time. So in other words, the emotional body, the encompassment of an entire life, it is governed by the world. To the same extent, to the large degree, and I suppose the practicality of everything that went into that life. So whoever was Jesus 2,000 years ago, the energy that basically surrounded Jesus' life, that created the paradigm of Jesus' life 2,000 years ago, gets passed around in different ways through family, and it can get taken and it can move around. But it's not like, oh, it was Jesus 2,000 years ago and that life is his, the emotional body. No, the emotional body of Jesus happens in the future. So everything that governed Jesus' life in terms of the world whilst he was alive is this point in the future when karma basically gets blown up, when we become conscious to such a level that karma doesn't exist. And at that point, that's when time, I guess, restarts and we move forward with emotional bodies as conscious beings. I suppose that's when time began. That's when whatever event happened for the Mayans to start counting and creating a calendar all those thousands of years ago, and to count forward to 2012-ish time. It was a case of the karma for the world began all those thousands of years ago, and the healing of that karma is happening at some point in the future. And everything that really happens within the world to a certain extent is responsible within that cycle, within that birthing of time, birthing of karma, time beginning, and the end of karma, the healing of whatever took place all those thousands of years ago. And I expect whatever it was far greater than Jesus as a person, and or the very thing that killed him, as part of what killed him, responsible for what killed him. I'll get to the crux. Basically, my grandfather, I understand, took, and that's a key. When you take an emotional body, you're almost killing the person. So he really did kind of kill Adolf Hitler. So in one way it was good, but in another way it's bad, because whatever fucking insanity Adolf Hitler was, it fitted perfectly within my grandfather. And then that gets passed down in the family, and then the way consciousness is polarized in family dynamics, you can then look at the family. And my father, I look at him as the reincarnation of Chuang Tzu, the guy who wrote The Art of War. And the oldest child is always polarized against the father. The second child is always polarized against the first child. So in that sense, my uncle Costas also really carries that energy. My father carries that energy. I know I've seen it in my dad. Before my dad gave to life, his energy was polarized against my grandfather. So it's arguable in that sense how much. And then the third child, again, is polarized against the second child, I guess, and or a perfect harmony. But my dad's youngest brother, the third son, my uncle Vladimir, who was the world to me as a teacher and a guide, was the reincarnation of Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill's emotional body. He didn't take it. It was passed on through Winston Churchill's demise or whatever. And within my uncle Vladimir's life, he basically healed the world of World War II. That's why I believe my uncle Vladimir has had a great consciousness within him, and he was able to see the world in terms of unconditional love and its absolute purity. Winston Churchill wasn't an angel, but all my uncle had to do was fight my grandfather when my grandfather was on his last legs and on his third son. His first son was Chuang Tzu, The Art of War. So my dad must have given my grandfather something. And the second son inherited the emotional body of Nikola Tesla. So my Uncle Kos, he's a wise person, but he's a very simple man when you speak to him. And I think what it is with the emotional body, you have to have the right dynamics in your life to really go the same way of that original inheritance. So in other words, it was unlikely my Uncle Kos was ever going to go to Nikola Tesla's forte, which was thinking and mind and electricity and all of that. Instead, what my Uncle Kos, I believe, has done with all of that genius and wisdom that Nikola Tesla was to see it in a very simplistic way and realize how to live life perfectly in a very simplistic way. Between my dad and my two uncles, they basically, you could say, healed that karma. And well, for myself, my dad must have played a massive part in this, and my mother. I don't really see any negatives of Adolf Hitler being in my character. As much as I'm effing insane and I sentence the world to hell within my mind all the time, it's nothing I would ever act upon. I've never responded to all the punches and beatings and everything else I've received in my life. I've been a human punching bag. I've got a very placid nature, I'm all about peace. So my uncles and my father must have really sussed whatever that negativity was in my grandfather. My grandfather was, as my dad told me once, an absolute monster when he was younger. My grandmother, she was an absolute warrior spirit to see. She didn't have an easy life as a result, and her body showed it, but her spirit also showed what she must have had to do to stand up to my grandfather. And well, if my dad was polarized against Adolf Hitler, then it means that really I inherit a large part of Mr. Adolf's nature. You could say a cleansed version of Adolf. I've lived a very troubled life, and it goes to show that there was more clearing to do within Adolf. And obviously we're responsible on some level for us to inherit all of that work we've done as a family. We've earned that karmic responsibility, you know. Fuck me, that family is just a workhorse family, and none of them have really had easy lives. I mean, my uncle Vladimir, he had the easiest life, but I know what he had to give up to achieve anything in that direction, and it was the world to him. He gave up the world in pursuit of giving everything to the world anyway. So, what it really looks like is not a great thing. You know, my mental health has been pushing the idea of children on my head. It's the last thing I'm thinking of. But it's been pushing it on my head of late, and well, I carry that in my genes. Unless someone kills me and takes it, it's in our family as an energy, as a karma. And I mean, I'm speaking to the camera as if it's 2022. I know it's not. But let's just keep it at that level, because I'm not going to start talking about Atlantis. And it's just to put it out there, shame myself to that extent, and really discuss it out there in the open, where I can be a little bit more honest, I guess, and brutal with what I'm thinking, and put it to voice instead of trying to think in my head. That feels like I've God knows what. But it's not easy to digest. And on the flip side, my mother's family carry the emotional inheritance of Babaji. So somewhere between me, I've got a half-cleansed Adolf Hitler and the purity of Babaji. But Babaji himself, I believe that one of his previous lives was Abraham Lincoln. He's not any angel. And really and truly what we're talking about in terms of Babaji is all of that wisdom of a living God essentially coming down into a family that are living idiots. So all of that energy of a living God really would override and be more powerful to an individual life than it would within all of Babaji's existence. I don't know if that makes sense. So just Babaji's last life, he's reincarnated God knows how many times. His last life, the work that he did then, that purity is encapsulated and comes down and gets passed on to nobodies. That purity is going to heal, and that purity will ultimately stand out for all intensive purposes a lot more than that individual life within the soul of Babaji to that individual life of Babaji's within the soul of just a regular person. I hope that makes sense. So in other words, it's like if you're a god and you've just inherited my life, it's going to be like, what was that? That's nothing. But if you're just a regular person who's just lived regular lives and hasn't had the pleasure of being a living God, and all your lives have been roundabout balanced in the middle and not too up and down, you haven't done too many bad things, you haven't done too many great things, you've just been roundabout in the middle, and then all of a sudden you inherit one of a living God's lives, it's going to send it in a specific direction. It's going to make that person shine where they might have dimmed their light before. And I'm here living terror times at least 2, knowing I must have some sort of disease in the very marrow of my bones. My life is that terrifying. And I've just been put on my plate that to have a guilt trip about Adolf Hitler being, for all intensive purposes, my responsibility. Because if the way karma happens is that it moves I believe it moves back in time. So in other words, my family are more responsible for the atrocities of World War II than Adolf Hitler was. Maybe the individual soul actually takes a 50% responsibility to this future point in time, but this future point in time takes as much responsibility as the soul. To my understanding. But now looking at it, it's actually probably the other way around. I don't know if that makes sense. In other words, it's like all the baggage that Adolf picked up before, as the emotional body was moving backwards in time towards this future point. In some strange way, I harbour that energy of Adolf Hitler. So it must be cleansed as it goes back. But these are all the questions that are really being opened up. Am I going to be responsible for all of those atrocities in World War II? The gas chambers and everything else? Or am I the one that's simply the cleansing of that soul's actions within that life? It could really be that simple. So I could just be the healer, or I could be the architect. And I know how much of a troubled life I've had, and that is an immense amount of work on my shoulders. I'm living terror at least times 2 at the moment, and all I try and do is be a good person inside. I've been blessed with an immense amount of positive energy and influence in my life. If I didn't have my uncle by my side as a guardian angel, if I didn't have what I believe Jesus' reincarnation by my side, if I didn't have another 1 or 2 good teachers and guides in my life, why would my life not look like Adolf Hitler's? I've also become aware that the father of the reptilians, and the reptilians are the planetary overlords that have enslaved humanity for God knows how many thousands of years, was a duck. My mum used to tell me when I was a kid I had duck lips. I used to hold my lips in a specific way. I know on a spiritual level I have the energy of a duck, so for all intensive purposes put that on my shoulders too. Would you forgive me if I said I want a break, I want to come back in a new life? I'm sort of I'm sort of overdue my 15-minute break at work, you know? Only 15 minutes when you're healing Adolf, when it's possibly yourself. And people have made it very, very clear to me that the way they're going to treat me is unjust to the world. In other words, here's some more karma, Andreas. We don't think you've had enough on your shoulders already. Here, Andreas, this thing that you should have had that was a good thing, we're not going to give it to you. And And if you ain't that way, it turns out that I'm a living saint healing Adolf, then I'm also the devil. And whatever goes backwards with Babaji. So really and truly, I'm very polarized as an individual. Surprised within all my mental health, bipolar isn't a feature. But look, I know to an average person, I'm having to work immensely to right wrongs of the past. I know aspects of myself through my spiritual meditations and journeys over the years of the horribleness of my potential as a human being, as much as my light. So I was told once I was Jesus' younger brother as well. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I'm starting to think I killed him on the cross. Not being a Judas or anything, as much as I've questioned that, but simply the love that Jesus had for his younger brother, and his younger brother rocking up in front of him, dying on the cross, and him hard at work trying to perform a miracle and break the very wood and nails that were impelled to him. And I rock up, and as an idiot, loving his older brother, and that look of absolute shock and mortality on my face, and Jesus looking down and seeing my face in shock to his situation, just knocked him off his perch for a split second, enough for him to die. That's where I'm thinking it's likely at, and that's just my luck. You have no idea of my luck in this life, and that is very representative of my luck. I would kill Jesus, not intentionally, but because I love him so much. And he's about to perform a miracle and fly off the cross, and I just turn up and I've just got this dumb, shocked look on my face, and it all goes to shit, and humanity has to suffer for another 2,000 fucking years. But really and truly, it doesn't matter for shit where I am at the moment. I don't care. I mean, I've balanced it out, and this live stream has worked for the purposes of whatever this live stream is going to work in that sense. Just to say it's a load of bullshit. It's all polarized. And either which way, Babaji has balanced it out. Not me. The last one that did all the work. That sat there in the Himalayas staring at the fucking world, burning up inside with all of that wisdom in terms of the sexual vitality of a human being, and then numbing himself to the world. But if you look at the pictures of him when he was older and his eyes, he is on fire inside. He is looking at the world and he is thinking to himself, who do I give this gift to? Who has done the most wrong? That would just write all of this shit. So in my head, I have done wrong. Look at those pictures, that's all I suggest. I saw his eyes, and those eyes said, I have stalked the entire fucking world out of pure love to suss it to an absolute T, with all the insanity that's fucking been over the past few thousand years. And he bottled up all of that fire within him as a gift to the greatest devil. That's my suspicion, that's my luck. Polarized. You see, it's an absolute blessing to receive that gift, if that's what I've done. Pure luck, and that's why my life looks as it is on the outside in terms of luck, because I just don't get any luck. Because Babaji's taken all my luck from this life with his gift. I don't deserve any more luck. And really and truly that balances out the emotional aspect, but as a conscious being now, I'm well aware of what it truly likely means. I'm not that good of a person. For all the good I am, it was a gift. I wish everyone a lovely week.